The air in the upper room was thick, not just with the scent of unwashed wool or the stale heat of a Jerusalem spring, but with a palpable, vibrating silence that made the skin on your arms prickle. You know that silence, don't you? It is the silence of waiting when you have run out of words, when your prayers feel like they are hitting a leaden ceiling, and the promises you once held onto with white-knuckled fervor seem to be slipping through your fingers like dry desert sand. Perhaps you have felt it lately, that hollow ache in the center of your chest where your passion used to burn, wondering if God has simply gone quiet or if your own soul has lost its frequency. If you are seeking a way back to the fire, or simply need to know that your current struggle is the prelude to something cataclysmic in the spirit, stay with me, because today we are going to peel back the layers of history to uncover why the events of Acts chapter 2 were never meant to be a one-time historical footnote, but a permanent, living reality for your life right now. Please consider subscribing to this journey as we explore the mystery of the Pentecost, for it is here that we find the key to everything you have been looking for. Imagine yourself huddled there with the disciples. They were terrified. They had seen the horizon of their world collapse when their master was taken, and even after the resurrection, they remained in a state of suspended animation. They were men and women caught between the echoes of a past they could not replicate and a future they could not comprehend. They were waiting. That is the secret, isn't it? Waiting is perhaps the most difficult spiritual discipline because it requires the death of our own timing. They remained in that upper room in Jerusalem, the city that had become a graveyard for their hopes, yet a cradle for their destiny. The street noise outside was a dull, rhythmic thrum of commerce and religious fervor, completely oblivious to the fact that heaven was leaning in, waiting for the precise moment to breach the membrane between the divine and the terrestrial. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. It did not come as a polite suggestion or a soft whisper. It arrived with the violence of a gale, a sound like a rushing, mighty wind that filled the entire house. Now, try to visualize this. It was not a breeze that rattled the shutters. It was a cosmic displacement of air, an atmospheric shift that signaled that the heavens were no longer closed. This was the auditory prelude to an invasion of grace. The mystery here lies in the timing. Why then? Why there? Why to those specific people? It was the day of Pentecost, a celebration of the harvest, a festival meant to honor the provision of God. But there was a deeper, hidden harvest happening. The disciples were the first crop of a new era, and the fire that descended was not a destructive force, but a consuming agent of transformation. As the wind roared, something else happened. Tongues of fire appeared, resting upon each of them. Not a collective flame, but individual, personal encounters with the divine radiance. This is where most people miss the point. They look for the wind, they look for the fire in the sky, but they forget that the fire settled on the people. It was a baptism of reality. The fire did not stay on the ceiling, it marked the individuals. It was the physical manifestation of the Holy Spirit moving from the abstract truth of a doctrine into the living marrow of their bones. Can you imagine the sensation? The warmth, the intensity, the sudden clarity that replaced their confusion? It was a purging of their trauma, a searing away of their fears, and an ignition of a purpose that would eventually see them turn their world upside down. But let us peel back another layer. Why did they speak in other tongues? Why was the immediate reaction to this infusion of the Spirit a shift in language? Think about the frustration of the human condition. We are isolated by our limitations, by the boundaries of our own perception, and by the barriers of our own ego. Language is the ultimate divider, a tool we use to define our tribe and exclude the other. When the Spirit descended, He broke those barriers. He gave them the ability to speak the languages of the people outside, to bridge the chasm between the divine intent and the human experience. It was a reversal of the chaos at Babel. Where humanity once fragmented in pride, they were now being reunited in the fire of humility and power. This tells us something profound about your own life. The confusion you feel, the inability to express the depth of your longing to God, is not a wall. It is a space designed for the Spirit to fill. When you cannot find the words, when your prayers are just disjointed sighs, that is exactly where the Spirit begins to intercede with groanings too deep for articulate speech. The crowd gathered outside, bewildered. They heard their own languages spoken by Galileans, men who had no business knowing the dialects of the diaspora. They were mesmerized, confused, and skeptical. Some mocked, claiming the disciples were drunk. And this, my friend, is a truth you must hold close. When you are truly touched by the fire of the Spirit, when you are operating in a dimension that the world cannot explain, they will call you crazy. They will label you, dismiss you, or try to rationalize your transformation. Let them. The opinion of the world is a small price to pay for the approval of the heavens. Peter, the man who had denied the Master just weeks prior, stood up. The transformation was complete. The coward who had withered under the gaze of a servant girl was gone. In his place stood a herald of the kingdom, his voice resonant with an authority that did not belong to him. He spoke the truth, he cut through the noise, and he pointed them back to the only thing that mattered, the restoration of the soul through the living Christ. Consider the aftermath. 3,000 people were added that day. But the miracle was not just the statistics. The miracle was the shift in the community. They sold their possessions, they broke bread, they lived with a glad and sincere heart. They were no longer a collection of individuals trying to survive. They were a singular body, moved by a singular heartbeat. This is the truth about Pentecost that is often ignored. It was never just about a singular, flashy event of speaking in tongues. It was about the radical reorganization of how human beings relate to one another. Pentecost is the death of individualism in the face of a greater, divine unity. When the Spirit takes hold, your personal ambitions, your petty grievances, and your rigid boundaries begin to melt away, replaced by a profound sense of belonging to a larger, eternal arc of history. Think about your current situation. You have been waiting. You have been seeking. You have been feeling the weight of the silence. Perhaps you have been looking for a sign in the sky, or a dramatic change in your circumstances. But notice what the text says. They were in one place, they were in one accord, and they were in a state of expectant stillness. The Spirit did not descend on those who were busy chasing solutions. He descended on those who were positioned to receive, even if they didn't know what they were waiting for. Is your life positioned that way today? Are you still, or is your heart cluttered with the noise of your own plans and the chatter of your anxieties? The fire is not something you drag down from the heavens with your effort. The fire is something you prepare for by clearing the space in your soul. There is a mystery in the persistence of this fire. We say the Pentecost happened 2,000 years ago, but the Bible speaks of the Holy Spirit as the earnest of our inheritance, the guarantee that the story is not finished. If the Spirit is the same yesterday, today, and forever, then the fire that rested on the heads of the disciples is still burning in the dimension of the Spirit, waiting to be drawn down into the reality of your current day. Why does it feel so distant for so many? Perhaps because we have become comfortable with a religion of information, a faith that is intellectualized and sanitized, stripped of its wind and its heat. We want the comfort of the promises without the disruption of the presence. But you cannot have the fire without the burning. You cannot have the transformation without the surrender. Consider the metaphor of the threshing floor. The fire of Pentecost was a winnowing process. It separated the chaff of the disciples' old identities from the wheat of their new purpose. If you feel like your life is being winnowed, if you feel like the things you once relied upon are being stripped away, do not be afraid. That is the wind of the Spirit creating a vacuum, making room for a greater harvest. You are being prepared for a new language, a new way of interacting with the divine that does not rely on the limitations of your past. The mystery of the Holy Spirit is that He knows you better than you know yourself. He knows the secret places where you have hidden your pain, your regrets, and your unspoken dreams. He is the one who goes into those dark corners, not to shame you, but to illuminate them with that same Pentecostal flame. As we linger here in the reflection of this event, think about the faces of those who were in that upper room. They were not sages. They were common people, flawed and broken, yet they were the vessels chosen for the greatest fire the world has ever known. This should give you pause. You do not need to be refined, educated, or perfect to host the presence of God. You only need to be available. Can you let go of the need to control the outcome of your life? Can you allow the silence to broaden, even when it feels like nothing is happening? The tension you feel is the tension of the precursor. It is the drawing back of the bowstring before the arrow is released. Remember the words of the prophet, "Do not despise the day of small beginnings." Your current struggle, your current season of waiting, is a seed. It is a hidden, subterranean work that is preparing you for the fire. Many people give up just before the wind picks up. They lose heart because they equate the quiet with the absence of God. But the quiet is where the atmosphere is stabilized. The quiet is where the Spirit gathers the force of the heavens to change the trajectory of your life. Do not break the silence with your own shouting. Wait. Remain in the room. Let the expectation build until it becomes a prayer that you cannot even formulate. That is when the wind will blow. That is when the fire will find its landing place. What if the reason you have felt stagnant is because you have been trying to ignite the fire with your own matches? What if you have been trying to manufacture the feeling of the Spirit rather than yielding to the presence of the Spirit? The Pentecost was not an achievement, it was a gift. It was a divine intrusion. You do not earn the fire. You simply position your heart to be a recipient of it. Start today by releasing the grip you have on your timeline. Tell the Creator that you are done with your own designs. Admit that you are tired of the exhaustion that comes from living without the breath of heaven. This is the beginning of the pivot. This is the moment where your narrative shifts from a story of struggle to a story of manifestation. Consider the ripple effect of those who were filled. They went out and changed the culture. They challenged the empires. They redefined what it meant to be human. When you allow the fire to settle on your life, your influence will change. You will speak differently. You will handle conflict differently. You will find that you have a reserve of peace that the world cannot understand, and a reservoir of courage that defies the odds. This is the inheritance of the Pentecost. It is not meant to be a memory, it is meant to be a mode of existence. It is the difference between a life lived in the shadows and a life illuminated by the light of the eternal. As you reflect on this, look around your own life. Where do you need a fresh wind? Where do you need the barriers of your own understanding burned away? Do not limit the Spirit to what you have seen before. The Pentecost was a new thing, a thing that had not been seen in the history of the world. God is a creator of new things. He is not constrained by the patterns of your past. If you feel like your faith has become a routine, a cycle of rituals that no longer satisfy the hunger of your soul, then know that you are at a crossroads. The fire is available to those who have the courage to ask for it, to wait for it, and to endure the transformation that comes with it. There is a weight to this conversation that is hard to articulate. It is the weight of glory. It is the realization that the same power that raised the Master from the grave, the same power that shook the foundational stones of Jerusalem, is the power that resides within the believer. We have become accustomed to living far below our potential, accepting a life of mediocrity because we are afraid of the intensity of the divine. But fire is meant to burn. It is meant to consume the waste and warm the cold. It is meant to light the way. If you are ready for that, if you are willing to let the old version of yourself be refined, then you are ready for the Pentecost to happen in your heart. Think about the relationship between the wind and the fire. The wind provided the oxygen. The fire provided the heat. In your life, the Spirit provides the movement and the passion, but you must provide the fuel. Your yielding, your obedience, your consistent turning toward the light, that is the fuel. Do not be discouraged if you don't feel the fire immediately. The ignition is often preceded by the smoke. The smoke is the cleansing, the realization of what needs to be removed. Trust the process. The one who started this work in you is faithful to complete it, and his timing is always perfect. He is not slow, as some count slowness, but he is precise. He waits for the perfect alignment of your heart and the perfect opening of the heaven. As we near the end of this reflection, I want you to sit with the thought of the upper room one last time. Feel the intensity of that moment, the collective breath held, the sudden roar of the wind, the brilliance of the light. Now, bring that back to your own space. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, realize that you are in a room of potential. The Spirit is not locked in a temple in the past. He is omnipresent, waiting on you. The mystery of the Pentecost is that it is an invitation. It is an open door that you have been standing in front of, perhaps not realizing that all you had to do was step through. You are not alone in this search. There are many others who are tired of the noise, tired of the surface-level answers, and hungry for the deep, unquenchable fire of the living God. Connect with this movement of faith by sharing your own journey, by engaging with those who are also seeking the deeper truths of the Word, and by committing to the process of spiritual growth that we are building here together. There is strength in the collective, just as there was in that upper room. Join us, subscribe, and let us walk this path together, holding the light for one another as we wait for the wind to blow again. The truth is, the story of Acts is not a finished book. It is a living document, and you are currently writing your chapter. What will it contain? Will it be a story of a life that stayed in the shallows, or will it be a story of a life that dared to stand in the fire? The choice is yours, but the power is His. As you step forward into your day, carry this mystery with you: the fire has not gone out. It has merely been waiting for a heart open enough to receive it. May you find that openness. May you find that presence. And may your life be forever marked by the wind and the flame of the Pentecost. Your transformation is not an event, it is a way of life. Keep waiting, keep seeking, and keep the doors of your heart unlocked, for the Spirit moves in ways we cannot predict, but the fruit of His presence is always, without exception, life beyond anything you could have imagined. The mystery of the Pentecost is that it removes the fear of the unknown. When you have the fire, you do not need a map, because the fire is the light you walk by. You do not need to know where the path leads, because you know who is leading you. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to be fully, completely, and unapologetically alive in the presence of the Creator. Do not settle for anything less. The world is full of fading embers and artificial lights, but there is only one source of the true fire. Seek it, hold it, and let it burn through everything that is not of the truth. Your journey is just beginning, and the best parts of your story are still being written in the embers of the grace that followed that day in Jerusalem. Carry the spark, for you were born to be a light in a dark place, and the fire you host is the only thing that will ever truly satisfy the longing of your soul. Do not look back at the room you left behind. Look forward to the horizon that the Spirit is revealing. You are ready. The wind is rising. The flame is waiting. Step into it today, and watch how your life begins to burn with a purpose that transcends time and space. The promise of the Pentecost is for you, today, in this very moment. Trust Him with the details, and watch what happens when you finally stop trying to control the wind and start allowing it to carry you home. If this message resonated with the deep hunger in your spirit, I invite you to join our community formally by subscribing, so that we may continue to unpack these mysteries together, ensuring that you never walk this path of faith in isolation again. Your journey is our journey, and there is so much more to uncover as we seek the heart of God together.